Kristen, and you're listening to Podcast and Amplify, a podcast for women and women of color entrepreneurs who want to amplify their voice and brand through podcasting and grow a wildly successful business. I'm the executive producer and host of 2 shows and an entrepreneur, and I love helping women grow their visibility, mindset, and business to the next level. Each week, I share tips on how to launch and leverage your podcast, and I'm bringing on the very best business leaders to give you advice on how to build your business empire. Let's amplify your voice and business. Hey there, welcome back to the show. I'm Kristen Quiros Bayona, and I am your host. So today we're talking about something pretty personal because it has to do with basically who I am, how I'm wired. And I'm talking about this because I know a lot of you are wired the exact same way. And what am I talking about? So I'm talking about being an introvert. So I used to have a little bit of shame about being an introvert. I don't know if any of you feel me on this, but I felt like there was a lot of acknowledgement of extroverts. I think especially in our Western American school system, it was always about the first person who raised their hand. It's always the extroverted life of the party that's like celebrated and the fun person. And really, me growing up, being a wallflower, being sensitive, being quiet, weren't qualities that were celebrated or praised. So it wasn't until I read that book, Quiet, that I really felt like I could own being an introvert and saw how much of a benefit it was, how much value there is in being introverted. I realized that it's a spectrum. So the things I talk about today here, they might not all resonate with you, but just know that I understand that us introverts, we are not all the same. And while there are varying degrees of being an introvert, here's a few characteristics that we tend to have. So we tend to enjoy our own company, be very self-aware, be deep thinkers. We need time to process. And we are super energized by deep, meaningful conversations. And we really enjoy meaningful connections with others. So there are a lot of aspects of podcasting that fit well with these inherent traits. So if you identify as an introvert and you've been thinking about starting a podcast, here are 6 reasons why I think podcasting and introverts are perfectly matched. Okay, first of all, we enjoy solitude. So because introverts enjoy solitude, we don't mind spending the alone time that's required for creating important aspects of a podcast, like researching guests or writing reviews or writing interview questions or scripts or show notes or editing episodes. See, there's a lot of areas where we have to spend time by ourselves. And the amount of time behind the mic is really small compared to the rest of the time spent doing the quiet focus work. So it's really perfect for introverts because it gives us that time to be by ourselves and recharge. Okay, so we are also thoughtful and intentional. So being intentional comes really natural to introverts, which means that the content we put out is usually pretty solid, quality content. It's well thought out, it's impactful, and being thoughtful is so important when you're developing each part of your podcast, because it starts with your mission for your show, and then it goes all the way to the topics and then to creating your assets. So a good example of where thoughtfulness is just invaluable is when writing show notes. So this process requires podcasters to listen to the interview for the most important points. So you got to be a good listener. And then you need to pull in helpful links and quotes. And then you have to write the copy that communicates this value to the listeners. And this all really requires you to be thoughtful and intentional. Hey friends, We'll get back to the show in just a moment, but I wanted to let you know about the VIP intensive I offer once a month for the busy entrepreneur who wants to start a podcast. So if you know you have something to say that will inspire others, you want to reach new audiences, show up in a bigger way, and make more money, I want to invite you to join me inside my VIP one-day guided workshop, where I'll walk you through creating all the elements of your fabulous podcast. You'll even write your first script and record your very first episode. So if you want accountability, guidance, and dedicated time to start your podcast, go to exploreinu.com/courses to sign up. Okay, my friend, back to the show. Okay, so speaking of being great listeners, introverts, we just are. We are typically natural observers, and we take in actually more information from the environment than others. That's where that sensitivity comes in. And when you're used to being quiet and taking in what's around you, not only are you a practice listener, you're also able to pick up on nuance. And I tell you, the nuance is kind of where the juice is, right? It's kind of where that special thing lies. And you have to be a great listener to pick up on the small things. So these listening skills are invaluable when interviewing guests, I just have to say, because you can make the guest feel seen, you can make them feel heard, you can ask insightful questions and follow-up questions, and that all leads to just having a better conversation in general. All right, introverts tend to be very self-aware and to love learning. So we spend a lot of time expanding our knowledge about a variety of things. It really is something that helps us to connect to others in so many different ways because we have this deep well of learning and knowledge and understanding of our own experiences that we can bring to the conversation and then helps us relate to the person that we're talking to. So this is really helpful when, again, we're doing interviews or when we're writing interview questions, which is my favorite part of podcasting. And then when we're asking those questions, we just have this really strong desire to understand and learn from others naturally. So our conversations tend to really have a lot of great nuggets of wisdom and value. Speaking of value, so we value meaningful conversations. So introverts prefer deep, long-lasting relationships, and we really hate small talk, like really. So podcasting creates the introverts like ideal scenario. So it's a meaningful conversation around a specific topic with like 1 to 2 people. And each interaction we have with the guests, it's just this way for introverts to really get that deep, meaningful connection that we love. And it allows us to expand our network in a way that feels just so organic and with people that we really connect with. Okay, lastly, we introverts love to learn by watching others. So we are observant and we are not the people who are going to just dive in head first and figure it out as we go. We are typically the people who want to watch someone do it, kind of figure it out, learn through someone else's experience, and then do it on our own. So before starting a podcast, I listened to a ton of different podcasts to get a feel for like how it's done, to listen to how does this show deliver their intro, or how do they talk to guests, or where do they put in ads, things like that. And it's great that we as introverts who like to watch before we do have that opportunity to listen to so many podcasts and sort of get ourselves ready and sort of conceptualize what we want to do for our podcasts before we actually start our podcasts. And we can go somewhere private and no one even has to know that we're doing a podcast. And we can edit out our mistakes, which is huge because introverts tend to be sort of perfectionists. And it takes the pressure off knowing that, oh, we can just go edit our fumbles, and really takes that edge off of performing live. And so it really gives us the space to try and tweak and do things without an audience as we're learning this podcasting process. So while introverts usually like to stay in the background, podcasting can initially feel super uncomfortable. But once we push through the awkwardness, this medium will feel like it was really made for you. And you'll see that podcasting offers those intimate and meaningful experiences that we naturally crave. It gives us the opportunity to put a ton of value out there for people, which we love to do. We like to do things very intentionally. So one area that we can struggle with is when it comes to promoting ourselves and our show. But luckily, this is something that can easily be outsourced to someone else. If you are feeling super uncomfortable about the promotion aspect of podcasting, you can always hire someone to do it for you. So a successful podcast requires many of the traits that introverts inherently have. That's why I encourage introverts like me to grab the mic and lean into your strengths. Podcasting will really allow you to shine in a way that feels authentic and aligned with who you are. And really, isn't that what it's all about? So if you're an introvert and you are wanting to start a podcast, I've created a workshop around how to start a podcast. So the workshop is called The 3 Secrets to Starting a Successful Podcast. And you can go and sign up and listen to it at your leisure by going to exploreanew.com/podcast. So that's all I have for you today, my lovely introverts and non-introverts. I've enjoyed talking about this topic with you all, and I will see you on the next show. Thanks for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe so you don't miss a show. And rating and reviewing this podcast is the best way to help support us. Always remember, your voice and what you have to offer is needed in the world. Until next week, take care.